Welcome to Her Success Matters, a podcast exploring how advisors can work together to build a pathway for women to succeed in financial services. I am your host, Christine Shaw, Chief Executive Officer of Investment News. This podcast will give you rare insider access to the top financial services executives who are taking action to break down the barriers for the next generation of female advisors. You will also hear from some amazing and inspiring women who have forged their own pathway to success. Welcome to Her Success Matters. For today's episode, I have a very special guest and powerhouse in women's leadership. With us is Wendy Hartman, President of Buckingham Strategic Wealth. Wendy and I are going to dive into her experiences as the president of one of the largest RIAs in our industry, a role rarely held by a female. Wendy, we are delighted to have you join us today. Welcome to Her Success Matters.
Thank you so much, Christine. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Yes, it is very exciting having you on our episode today. So, Wendy, please tell our listeners a little about your background and journey to becoming president of Buckingham Strategic Wealth and being the only woman as part of the firm's C-suite.
Sure, absolutely. My background in wealth management and really the financial services industry spans well over 2 decades. It truly has been my life's work. I was drawn to wealth management early on in my career for my true passion to help and serve people, and always really trying to find ways to educate and continue on with financial literacy. Out of college, I started my career in the banking industry, and I was helping business owners, their families, and individuals deal with how the businesses were growing and expanding. And really with that experience and continued education, I was able to pivot my career at the bank and start working for the trust company that was part of the bank's holding company. And what was really exciting about that is I was able to combine my experience and serve those same clients, but now I was serving them as a wealth advisor and being able to provide all the aspects of financial planning and investment management. I spent, probably over a decade working for the trust company, and I learned so much. It provided me a wonderful foundation, but I came to a fork in the road, and I knew that I wanted to do more for myself and those clients that I served. And I wanted to find a firm that was founded to do just that. Really, through conversations with peers and my own due diligence, I found Buckingham. And it was a life-changing moment for me. It was a breath of fresh air to find a firm that was founded on amazing core values, had a great culture, really just thought doing good was by doing right with an evidence-based approach. I don't know if it was good luck or karma, but when I started Buckingham in 2010, I was partnered with one of the firm's founders. I didn't know it at the time, but that was going to change my life forever. He was an amazing mentor to me as a senior level advisor, really made me a stronger advisor through knowledge and practice. But he provided me a front row seat to how the business operated and the values, again, of the foundation of which Buckingham was founded. And he was just such a great person. He was fun to work with and really inspired me as a mentor. As Buckingham grew, so did opportunities for leadership. And I took every opportunity I was given. Over time, I found myself really having to make a hard decision. And it was going to be leadership over clients as I had served as a wealth advisor, or leadership over our advisors and our community. And I just really learned that you can't do both well. You can't serve two masters. And so, certainly I ended up choosing the leadership path. Ultimately, in June of last year, the board asked and I accepted to be president of Buckingham Strategic Wealth. And I'm humbled every day for the work that I get to do, both in our advisor experiences and our client experiences.
Wow, it's no wonder that you have this role. But I want to dig into a few of the things you spoke about. How did you get exposed to financial literacy, and how did financial literacy become an important part of you and what you chose to focus on?
Sure. I would say really through pursuit of the academic foundation in my undergraduate work, and really having to take that and help friends understand and even family members understand, like, what was I learning? And then even when I started at the bank, certainly there was knowledge there about the financial industry, and just finding myself having to break down what felt so complicated if you weren't doing it day to day, and just put it really into practical terms, again, just to help those friends and families be able to help make some of their decisions. Again, just knew early on that that gave me so much energy and was such a passion. I wanted to find something that could balance that out and that I could do more broadly.
Yeah. And, I can hear the passion in your voice when you talk about it. And that's fantastic for you that you understood at a young age that that was your passion and you followed that. And it's led you to where you are today. You also mentioned a little bit about having a mentor. And
Mhm.
tell me a little bit what that was like. And you had a male mentor, as did I throughout my career. So talk about what that was like as a female having a male mentor.
It was great because I felt like with my mentor in particular, that one of the amazing opportunities, and it was really probably the first time in my career that this had happened, he really took the time to get to know me and how I worked and how I ticked. And I felt like he was always my advocate in certainly the business and the professional world, but also my advocate to be able to go to just on a personal level and be able to work through any challenges or obstacles that I was facing. He was so consistent in his approach, and that's a value system that I carry on in my leadership role today. It's just that consistency and knowing that you're always going to be able to come and have an open discussion, and it's going to be transparent. I think about him and all the guiding principles that he has instilled in me, just again in a professional way and in a personal way. He really chartered my course, and he's still a mentor in my life today, in fact.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. The common theme I have in this conversation, no matter who I've spoken to on these episodes, it always has the thread of a mentor and or sponsor, sometimes two different people, sometimes the same or multiple people. And it just really speaks to underscoring that importance of having that. And then also, I'm sure you do this as well as giving back as a mentor to people in the industry. That's such an important thing to focus on for all of us. So thank you for sharing that. And let's talk about your leadership role. So you had managed a large, successful book of business with a
Mhm.
diversified client base as a wealth advisor, and now you're president. So tell us what it was like transitioning and navigating into this role, both the successes and challenges you faced.
Sure. I would say, as I commented earlier, this has been my life's work. And so I have taken such pride in the number of lives that I've impacted as an advisor, and now transitioning into my current role as president, as a leader and someone who inspires culture and a vision for the future. I have always led with a servant's heart. And that has, again, served me well in both of these roles, just to have that mindset. It's not easy. And I would say two of my most important attributes are grit and perseverance. And it's just really knowing and consistently thinking about reinventing yourself and reinvesting in yourself too, through both experience and knowledge. There's no perfect playbook. I think we make our own playbook and define that roadmap of what success is going to look like. I have learned so much through navigation and through this role change about myself and about people. And I know that I need to continue to be a student of the business, our business that is forever changing, to be able to bring back that best knowledge set, both for our advisors and myself as we look into the future. So grateful, again, for all the people that I've met. I carry pieces of them with me always. And I would say the biggest thing that I would end with just, navigating the lead into this president role. And I even found this, certainly being an advisor too, was always surrounding myself with the most amazing people who are smart, who are talented, who are caring and supportive. And I think that's really been instrumental for me in just finding these different paths forward and knowing that they were always my advocates and giving me the best advice of how to tackle both successes and challenges.
It's great that you have had that type of support throughout your career. You mentioned one of my favorite words, which is grit. And it's interesting because that's one of the things I've always focused on. And sometimes people ask me, well, how did you become a CEO, et cetera? And I've met so many people who have a lot of talent. They have the right degree, they have all the right skills, but they're missing that key thing, which is grit. And grit is, from my perspective and in my opinion, one of the big separators between people who are really successful and people who achieve, success, but maybe not to the level they want. But grit cannot be looked over at all if you're really going to achieve those challenging goals that you set for yourself throughout your career and in your personal life, not just career related. So I'm glad we share that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Wendy, you've led all women teams focused on women niches, including divorce, women career changers, and in women as breadwinners. So tell me what steps you've taken to help guide more women to take ownership of their own financial wellness.
Yeah, Christine, I would say this is so important. And the one thing I would share with you is what's really helped in a lot of these conversations with women is to really ask good questions and learn what makes them tick and what are their values and their goals. Where do they see themselves, not just today, but into the future? And I feel like this discovery process can add so much value to those conversations to know how to help them come up with a plan for that ownership. I have found that with the support and encouragement, just to show up as who you are. What I mean by that is not to show up as someone that you think that you're supposed to be or a perception of someone. I think adds a lot of obstacles when you really just need to be focused on who you are and what is that going to mean for your path. And to be able to break down those barriers that can be kind of scary. These are big things that we're trying to think about and overcome. Just coming up with a plan that feels easy to take those bite-sized pieces and to help them figure out who to add to their village, if you will, in terms of who's going to help them achieve those goals and objectives. Education and being able to, again, go back to those roots of education and financial literacy, that with knowledge comes power. And I have found in these conversations with women that that power is just so incredible, that is so inspirational to be able to take that next steps towards taking ownership of their financial wellness. The last thing I would say is just to be able to relate to them on such a personal level. I think when you've been in their shoes, you've stepped in those roles, you can share those stories. That just helps bring things to life and say, yep, I can do this too.
Yeah, I agree. That personal experience, and that does put you in a unique position where you've come from that place, you understand it personally, so therefore you can share that. And myself as a young woman, I had success early in my career, but I was missing that education around financial wellness, and it didn't come till later in life. But I'm glad that I've now had that and can apply that to myself. And it's one of the things I say to young women too, is they're beginning their careers, that is so important. So we know how challenging that is and why it's so important. How do you keep this culture up to have more women come to your firm?
One thing that I think about with that is the culture that we have at Buckingham is so important, and it certainly began with those founders, and it's still alive today. That is incredibly important, and that I know has helped us achieve, if I think about all of our client-facing advisors, about 40% of them are women, and that is probably double the industry statistic. Even women who find themselves in different career paths and being able to relate to the women that we have within the firm, and even women at just different levels of leadership, different roles and responsibilities. Are the women advisors that we have within the firm, they have started their own peer groups, their own mentorship opportunities, and they're just really passionate about their communities. And I have seen firsthand, as they are getting together and sharing their stories, it also helps them to relate out to the women that they're working to bring in as clients, and to be able to help navigate all that life is challenging, or we know that glide paths can change as life changes. And I think just being able to create that culture and that inspiration goes back to a lot of our own guiding principles.
Yeah. And, as a woman, it can be challenging at times to understand your self-worth, given all the roles we play and fill in and out in the day. So tell us some more personal conversations you've had with women in your firm to help overcome this.
I love this question because this happens almost probably on a day-to-day basis. And I would say, it's really just knowing your own self-worth. You have to be really clear and set expectations for yourself and defining what good looks like, and knowing how you will define success because it doesn't always come easy. There isn't a perfect yardstick to use. Again, we just know that things are going to change over time. If I could tell you all of the shoulda, woulda, coulda conversations I have had, I just feel like a lot of the, women that I work with within Buckingham and certainly in my own personal networks, there's just such this immense pressure to be perfect and to be better. Some of the recent conversations I've had, especially in this work from home transition and virtual environment that we're in, it's, I should have read my kids' books last night, but I was trying to catch up on XYZ, or gosh, I really could have handled this conversation with a client better, or I should have worked out today, or should have been more present in XYZ conversation. And I just find with all these various conversations of just managing the day to day that women just put this pressure on themselves and they feel judged. They want to do everything and have that work-life balance and just do everything at 110% or more. And what I find and what ends up happening in reality is that they feel stretched too thin, or they feel like they're not always present in those moments. And so the conversations that we have, it's just to build each other up and even create some small accountabilities for self-care, or, hey, we were talking about this last week and did you follow up? Or I know you were trying to make that doctor's appointment, or whatever the case is. I often, I tell them that they have to be smart with their time. You have to be intentional. Don't waver. Have high expectations for yourself and those around you. You just have to be confident and give yourself permission to do that.
When you were talking about the shoulda, coulda, woulda, it's like, oh, she's in my head. How does she know I have all those thoughts going on?
Yes, me too, all the time.
Exactly. But also, too, what I have found in these conversations that a lot of very successful women also have some particular inner challenge or secret or something that they've had to overcome. And one of yours was you're an introvert and had to overcome that inner challenge given your high profile position. So what gave you the confidence to be able to overcome something like that and get into this position and into your comfort zone?
Yeah, thank you. It's really my true passion to want to provide that inspiration. And I want to be viewed and felt as a role model that women look up to, and that I want to do my part in providing that best example. I can share that it's difficult when you feel that you're different than most others in the room. And I don't mean just, men or women or that meaning, but it's just really how you naturally show up. And for me, that is as an introvert. And I think, most of the time people assume these roles and high profile positions are going to be more extroverted. But for me, whether it's in the boardroom or even in my C-suite position, that has been a challenge I have felt for myself. Not what people perceived of me, but certainly what I felt for myself. And being an introvert can certainly take on many different definitions or mean different things. For me, it really is showing up as sometimes the most quietest person in the room who just tries to listen and take everything in, be present. And really, I'm just internalizing everything and thinking about how I want to make those value contributions later. I'll share a personal story. And it was my team leader at the time was actually the president of Buckingham before we transitioned. And it was just in a conversation we had, and it was a light bulb moment. He gave me some really great advice. And it was just, I've spent time working with you. I see how you tick, and that you shouldn't feel judged or perceived, and that you have to show up and be you and just be the best you and tell people how you work best. That level of encouragement has really helped me overcome some of those inner obstacles I have felt. To be present in the room and tell people, this is how I'm going to work. This is how I'm going to add value. I need to see things in advance, or whatever the particular case is. The other thing I would add is that public speaking is probably one of the most nerve-wracking things that I can do, especially as an introvert. And so I've had to practice a lot and develop some techniques to be able to do that. And I use that as an example in a lot of conversations I have with women who want to do that, but certainly have the same nerves. And I get to work with other really strong women within Buckingham or who are introverts too. So it's just being able to have that connection and share stories. That's been really helpful.
Yeah, it sounds like you've gotten some great advice from your leadership. And I love that you were able to define who you were and come to a position of strength and just being okay with who you are and how you approach your work and not trying to change to conform to others. I also love that you shared about public speaking, because I think that's pretty common. In fact, I've heard that throughout this series quite a bit. And it's always surprising because you see women and men alike both up public speaking, and they're so great, but it takes practice, it takes work. It doesn't just happen naturally, particularly if you're an introvert. So thanks for sharing the personal story on that too. And one of the comments you said is, strong women build each other up. I am such a fan of that expression. And I think we've come a long way as women in supporting other women. So do you feel like having that support with other strong women has helped shape leadership characteristics as well?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, it's so important. I know that I would not be the woman I am today without all those amazing, strong women in my life. I talk a lot about my villages. I have a personal village that has friendships, going back to elementary school through college and sorority sisters, to my professional village of women that I am fortunate to be surrounded with every day, and those within Buckingham and certainly outside of Buckingham as well. When I think about a lot of the conversations that we're having, or what am I going to them for, or what am I seeking their counsel for, those leadership characteristics are really around, I would say, three things: communication, accountability, and empowerment. And with communication, it's being able to go to these women and say, hey, I've got an idea, here's how I'm thinking about communicating it or launching it, and getting their feedback and just asking their opinion about how messages will come across. And with accountability, this goes back to probably some of the perfectionism. It's realizing when we make mistakes, or not being afraid to make mistakes, and how you use that experience to further overcome things in the future, or being able to have accountability about an end outcome that you want. And I just find with these conversations with women, and either personal or professionally, it just helps give me such a great perspective from an outside point of view. I would say the last characteristic of empowerment is really helping shape the people that I also get a chance to mentor within Buckingham, or again, just within networks outside, to have that confidence and to know and help people identify their strengths or opportunities, and to be able to get to a point of where they want to go, and just identify things that will help make them better and stronger. I'm sure, like most, I don't take any of that for granted. It's certainly a give and take. And I'm just, again, grateful for all of those role models and people I have, just to be able to brainstorm and think about things. It certainly makes me a better person.
Yeah, that's wonderful. There's a great information in that and some good advice. I love how you break it down to focusing on specific things as well. And, Wendy, we're in such a pivotal moment with history and more women working to break the glass ceiling than ever before. So talk to us about how important succession planning is for you to reach women at a young age and remove the stigma that financial services is an industry just for men, especially at the top.
Oh, absolutely. And we are, and completely agree that this is a pivotal moment in our history, especially as we look at the landscape of the financial services industry, and just how businesses have moved and how they're integrating, and how we think about how they are going out in recruitment for people that they wanted to be able to join their firm. Again, just speaking of financial services industry and perspective and wealth management. And I think about just 3 succession plans, I guess, if you will, just that I've been through personally, that I feel like are part of what we're seeing as opportunities for women who are just joining, career forces, or maybe they're career changers, or they are looking to start their own firms. And really what I find the most, again, is those advisors who have built a firm, they built their career, and they're looking for someone to come in and help them transition their business. Or they could find themselves in a situation like myself, where you have built a business, but now you're taking on roles and responsibilities. So you want to help find someone that can help you manage that day to day and take over those client relationships. And I think too, just as we think about succession planning and just different roles that happen within firms and companies, and just even in the industry throughout, just being able to identify They are. And be able to share those stories and be able to get on college campuses or talk to people in the high schools to educate really what those opportunities are to remove that stigma and to show that a career glide path perspective, there is so much to offer and there are so many positions, and being able to be part of a growing firm that there are other opportunities that you can certainly pursue. So I think there's a lot of things that I can do internally within Buckingham and our firm, but especially outside in the industry. That is really helpful. And I recently joined the National Board of NAPFA, and that's something that has provided me additional insight around in terms of just really getting that education out there for women, but just certainly just generally in the population overall.
Wendy, thank you for sharing all of that in the background. One of the things I want to let listeners know too, in addition to all the success you've achieved in your career, which is what we've been speaking about, you're also a mother with children, a wife. And, I think sometimes a lot of us get it in our head that if you are a wife and mother, you can't possibly have that successful career alongside that. And, one of the things we talk about this whole having it all, I actually am not a big believer in that expression because I think that all is based on what your definition of all is, and it's different for every one of us. But you've been able to balance being a working mom, having a career, and a wife. So how do you lead by example for that? And what do you tell women who get caught up in that notion of, oh my gosh, to have it all, you have to make all these sacrifices?
I think it's a really good question. And we do hear, how can you have it all, quite frequently. And really what I have found to be most impactful is just simply being real and being transparent in a lot of the conversations that I have with women, and that it is a notion. And I think that you can, and I know that you can. It comes down to a phrase that gets used a lot, and that's work-life balance. I think just acknowledging that there are going to be good days and there's going to be bad days, and there's probably going to be everything in between. And I do try to lead by an example, that just by being vulnerable, and you can share your stories about what's going on, what's happening for you in the day, and to talk about how you can be more present in the moments that are important to you. And again, just surrounding yourself with people who build you up and who help you overcome any obstacles or challenges that you're facing. And I feel like when I am in those conversations, it's, gosh, you can't tackle everything. You can't boil the ocean in a week or on a weekend. So you really just have to prioritize. I feel like when you're having those conversations, to see that you can have the career, you can have the family, you can have the being a wife and all of those things, that it's really fun and it's really cool to be able to lead by that example and just have strict boundaries for yourself, again, with that work-life balance. I have two boys. One is 14 and one is 5. So my life gets pretty hectic. And so I'm certainly leading by saying you need to be able to be present in those moments. For me, it's with my kids and being able, their schools or sports or other things. So I think those are other things that just help in those conversations.
Yeah, as a woman who also raised children during my career as well, I always would say to people that you have a limited amount of time throughout your day. We all do. It's up to you to be the guardian of that and to say no to things that don't support what you're doing, whether that be negativity or the things that just don't speak to what you're trying to do. And I think as women, we say yes to a lot often, and you have to be okay with saying, I can say no to some things if it's not being supportive of what I'm trying to do, my purpose, my family, my career. So I think that's great advice. I can even recall it's also too having a great partnership with your significant other. My husband at the time when we were raising my son, he was a football fanatic, like he was on the football team. And my husband didn't have to travel for his job. So he took the actual role of football mom for the team. And he was the team's football mom. And it worked wonderfully. Like everybody loved it. He was great at that sort of thing. And I was perfectly okay that was what he did. And we just made it work for everyone. And, it was a fun experience. So it allowed us to have everything we needed, but we changed the narrative for our family. and made it work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I love that story. I can relate to that with my own husband who, gets off work earlier, has more free time to be able to chip in and do some of the pickup. And I think you're absolutely right. And that's a great thing that other women around you see, is that you're able to multitask and balance and create those partnerships to help everything run as smoothly as possible.
Yes. All right. So this has been such a great conversation. You shared so much about yourself personally, about your career, your passions, your beliefs. And so my final question, Wendy, to all my guests is I would love to hear in your words why her success matters.
Her success matters because her story matters. Her story matters because of all of the voices that we're going to hear and that are going to be shared. And I think about my best friend's daughter who's headed off to college, or women who want to return to the workforce after they have raised their children or cared for family. Women deciding that they want to become entrepreneurs, or women who in the midst of their career decide that they need a change, they want to change. And her success matters to inspire all of these women, to empower inspiration for all of our generations to come.
Thank you so much. And I loved that you said because her story matters. One of the biggest privileges I get from doing this is hearing so many great stories. And it's become my favorite part about doing this series is listening to the women tell their own unique stories. And it's very inspiring and encouraging to every other woman who's out there who wants to achieve that success, both personally and professionally. So thank you so much, Wendy, for your time, for being so personal with our audience, and for giving our listeners a lot to think about and to be excited and inspired by.
Christine, thank you so much. I have enjoyed this opportunity, and thank you so much again for having me today.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Her Success Matters. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available, and share this podcast with others that believe her success matters.